Hello people of Defend the House and welcome back to another one of mine and Jameson's long talky videos. Today we are doing, what are we titling this? Like a full review roundup.
I think so.
I think we are talking about every game that came out from now to, no, since October to now?
Yeah, it's like the beginning of October to, now, which is mid-December.
Yeah, we have a lot of games. We are going to talk about. I think we thought this was a good idea because we have our top 10 of 2016 coming out reasonably soon. Hopefully we will get it out in January.
Oh.
And I think we both realize that quite a lot of these games are most likely not going to make it onto the list. So we thought it'd be a good idea to have a little chat about them. These are kind of all the sequels and the shooters of the year, and a lot of people like these games, and they might want to know what we think about them. So let's read out the list. We are going to go through Mafia 3, Gears of War 4, Battlefield 1, Titanfall 2, Call of Duty 4 Remastered, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Dishonored 2, Watch Dogs 2, and The Last Guardian. That list is actually bigger than I expected.
Yeah, 9 games is, hey, whatever.
It's kind of like a top 10 list. It's not going to be far off.
No. But yeah, there were lots of good games this fall. But not so good that they'll probably... I mean, there are 9 games here, and probably 7 or 8 of these games will not be on my top 10 list of the year. But they were almost all really good and really enjoyable.
Yes, surprisingly.
And it would be nice to talk about them. Plus, the game-specific review videos are pointless because they're always 7 months late, and this sort of would allow us to do like a quarterly review roundup or something. Like every 2 or 3 months we can do something and talk about all these things, and that allows us to talk about them and also not worry about time constraints. So
yeah, I think these videos acted more as podcast type videos. A lot of people didn't really use these videos to influence if they were going to buy things or not. They kind of just wanted to hear us ramble about video games. So that's what we're going to do every few months or so. All right, are you ready to kick off?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's start off with Mafia 3. I'll start because I have beaten this game.
Yeah.
And I played it on release date, I believe, and you've just started, haven't you?
Yeah, I only just started in the last 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, and Mafia 3 is an interesting game because it's also quite a frustrating game because it starts off really, really strong. The first 5 hours of Mafia 3 I found really, really exciting because at the time I was really craving like another open world crime game. I guess like a GTA 5 clone to say. I was really craving one of those games, and the game starts off really good. I really enjoyed the way it played. The driving might be a bit arcadey for some people, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the shooting. I liked the writing. I liked the voice acting. I thought the characters were interesting. And it's a bit of a mess when it comes to the tech. The tech behind it.
Tech,
like, I'm going to get
yes,
into
it is.
Yeah.
We played on the PC.
It's a very buggy... It's a very buggy mess of a game, but the first 5 hours are very exciting because I was like, wow, this is like, it's not quite GTA 5 standard, but it's really, really strong. Unfortunately, about 5 or 6 hours into the game, you do hit a very large chunk of the game, which is just you taking over the city, and it's the same tasks over and over and over for roughly 20 to 30 hours, depending on how slow you take it. And then at the end of the game there's another fantastic 5 hours. So Mafia 3 is this very unusual game where it's like a sandwich and the bread is fantastic and the content in the middle is just kind of
it's like a single piece of ham, and you're like, oh
yeah, that kind of that wet horrible stuff you get cheap from a supermarket. It kind of reminds me of like the Ubisoft side quests. It's just kind of like the same thing over and over again, and it was disappointing because I really saw like the foundations of a great game in Mafia 3, and then it's kind of like they felt like the game had to be 30 to 40 hours long for it to be considered like a member of the open world sandbox crime genre. So they just kind of padded it out with the same stuff in the middle. And I don't actually know anyone else who has made it through that middle section except for me. And I know quite a few people who have played it, and I don't know anyone else who's got to the end segment. So I don't think they did themselves any favors. I just think the game's unfinished. They just didn't finish it, I think. I think they had a beginning and they had an end, and they were like, don't know what to do in the middle, so let's just make them do the same stuff over and over again. And it's a shame.
Okay, well, let's just go back a bit, because I have played about, 10 hours. And yeah, the first the first 2 hours are incredible, and then another couple hours after that are also solid, because it's all fresh. But yeah, the first 2 hours of that game are really, really, really good, with this really long build up to him and his friends and family all getting shot to shit. It's really effective. It's long enough that you care and like about everybody there, or like and care about everybody there to an extent, or have feelings towards all of them to different extents. And then they all get killed, and it's horrible.
Well, spoilers, man.
Well, spoilers. The plot is about revenge, and there are a bunch of people that get killed 2 hours in.
It's true.
And it's really, really well done. The cutscenes, the writing, the performances, the faces look pretty good for the most part. It's all exceptionally well done, and I think it's probably the cutscenes in the game across the board feel when they're at their best, they feel as good as a good gangster movie does, which I think is pretty rare. They get they capture the right amount of style, and also just the horrible, cruel meanness of it is all captured so well. And the writing, the story stuff is so good, and we have a tendency, you and I, to not tell each other when we're not liking something.
Yeah.
And you came in a month after Mafia 3 was out, and you're like, guys, it's not very... there's so much in it that's not good. And I was like, no.
I don't like to put people off a product.
Yeah, and
I like to let people be disappointed themselves.
And I was like, okay, how bad can it really be? And the first 5 hours you don't notice it, and then you get a little stretch of when you're recruiting the main 3 underbosses. It's sort of, that stuff is kind of repetitive, and you're like, okay, whatever. And then in my last play session, I got them all. I did the stuff where they all sit down in the house and you talk to them all, and then you go do the mission with the accountant that you throw off the top of the building.
Yeah, that was kind of.
And I was
cool.
But that was, to get to that mission, it was the, you got to damage this, and you got to kill these guys, and you got to interrogate these guys. And I was just like, no, I already did all that for 3 hours to get my underbosses happy with me.
You have just begun, man.
And then when you say that's literally just the rest of the game to kill everyone, and then a couple hours to kill the big bad guy at the end, it really, really, really makes it hard for me to keep playing. Because
it's a shame.
The gameplay is good. It's mean and kind of savage in a fun way.
You feel like a badass.
I played that entire game with just a pistol and a shotgun, because the pistol is really good about auto-targeting heads.
The pistol was so good, yeah.
And the shotgun, you can just not even aim down sights. You just hold it by your side like a goddamn Terminator and just blast everyone away. And it's
brutal.
It's great, but it's not. It's less interesting when it's just you go to an alleyway and kill 3 guys, and then you go to a big building and clear it out, and then you go and interrogate some guys, and then some capo comes and you have to go back to the same building you were just at to kill this other guy. Yeah. And it's just so repetitive, and there's so much of the shooting.
It just keeps going.
And I'm only 10 hours in.
Yeah.
My kill list, there are 4 X's on it, and there's 15 more to go or something. And it's just, I hate saying this, but I'm genuinely tempted to just watch the cutscenes on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a shame. There's other aspects of the game that I was disappointed in. I really like the beginning of the game, as we talked about, because they did a cool job with the characters.
Yeah.
And I really thought across the game they were going to do more with Lincoln, the main guy, because he's
great.
He's an interesting character where he's genuinely like savage and fucked up, and he's like stabbing people in the neck, and you don't even know if you like him, but you kind of you're rooting for him, but at the same time you're like, man, this guy's messed up. And I thought it was going to be like a clever plot on the effects of war,
like oh my god, what was it? The L.A. Noire went that direction in the back half.
Yeah.
Where it's suddenly like, oh, he's like insane from the war.
Yeah, and it was Nam as well, so I thought that was going to play more into the plot, but no spoilers at the end. You just get a choice of if you want to like
I read
roll
that.
the city
Yeah.
or just leave.
Yeah.
And then I feel it started off so good, and then maybe they ran out of time. I don't know. It feels rushed and unfinished, and I'm sad because it started off great.
I'll just
Really
say,
great.
yeah, Lincoln Clay is a great protagonist. This was sort of the year that like a lot of game protagonists stopped being like the most boring white men on Earth.
Yeah.
And Lincoln's great. He's mean and cruel, and also like really smart and articulate and nice in his own way, like kind in his own way. But he is like he is a mean human being in some really interesting ways. But it feels like and I remember hearing this about Mafia 2. Mafia 2, it sounded like the open world part of it didn't need to exist. I never played Mafia 2. I've only played 3.
I tried.
And it sounded like 2, it was just like the open world was literally just there for you to drive from one story mission to the next.
Yeah, time burner, basically.
Yeah, and this just feels like another game where it's like, this does not need to be an open world game at all. And it feels like they wanted to make a linear, like, 15-hour game, but they could only make it as Mafia 3, as an open world crime game, because that's what sells well, and it did sell well.
It did, yeah.
And I think that sort of, like, they know how to tell a story. Obviously, they're really, really good at it. But they don't know how to make the world interesting enough. And yeah, it just feels completely padded with unnecessary slog gameplay or open world stuff. And it just, sometimes I feel this way about Rockstar games occasionally. It's kind of like, I wish this was just like 15 or 20 hours long instead of 50. But the open worlds and all the crazy stuff you can get up to in Rockstar games makes that interesting, even though they are always too long. Mafia 3 is like, this just should not be an open world game to begin with. And
there was not much point to it, no.
No, because it's just like, like if it was just, even if it was like Mafia 2, where it's just like an open world game, but all you do is story missions, you just drive from one story mission to the next, that would have been great. It would have been only like 10 or 15 hours long though, and that, I don't know if that was probably like, no, you can't make it only 15 hours long. Make it 40
Possibly.
Or 30. If this was just a story game where there was no open world at all, and it was just going from one, level to the next with cutscenes, it would be friggin' amazing. We would be saying so many different things about it.
It definitely feels forced when it comes to its game length. Like, I can't think of any other reason why they would take out fast travel in an open world game, unless just to force you to drive around a lot.
Any game that has
do you drive
like
a lot.
fast travel constraints. I remember Red Dead Redemption, you had to like build a campfire with specific things, and you can only fast travel to certain areas or something. Any game where you either can't fast travel or you can only fast travel to specific things is very annoying. I mean, The Witcher, it was fine because like the signposts are everywhere, but this, like, you literally can't fast travel. And when I'm at the bottom of the map and it's like the next mission is like 3,000 meters away, I'm just like, oh, fuck off. I don't want to drive there. And I like being able, I enjoy the act of just driving through open worlds sometimes. Like in GTA, it doesn't bother me to an extent. Like I like to be able to do it, but I don't like to have to do it all the time. And Mafia 3's, the world part of Mafia 3 is not interesting. It's just like a bunch of brown buildings and some like really weird lighting every once in a while.
Yes.
But like, and the driving's not interesting, and there's no character interaction when you're driving. You're literally just driving a car through this like through an open world for no reason whatsoever for like 10 minutes between every single mission.
And you see all the map reasonably quickly.
Yeah, it's not gigantic.
No.
I mean, there's some good some areas to it that have some interesting personality, but for the most part,
Yeah.
I'm just like, my eyes just sort of glaze over while I drive to the next thing, and I get out and shoot a bunch of guys, and then hope that a cutscene plays, and then it doesn't, and then you go and rob a thing.
Cutscene is a rare treat.
Yeah, they really are. Like, that's the problem. That's like what makes this game kind of tragic, is that it's like the open world stuff is so uninteresting, but the cutscenes are so goddamn good that every time they play, I'm just like, oh, I'll just go to the next cutscene, and then it's like an hour, and by the time I'm almost at the next cutscene, I'm like, I don't want to play this game anymore, and then a cutscene plays, and it's like, oh, that was really good. Maybe I'll just go until I see the next cutscene.
Sometimes there's like these really weird, awkward moments where Lincoln is talking to someone, usually someone who is running an area, and they're just kind of like standing there, and the camera's like at the back of the room, and they're having like a really intimate conversation about like their kids dying or nightmares in Nam, and you can't even see like Lincoln's face, and it's just like,
yeah, it's just like, we don't have the budget to do this
really
cutscene.
Felt like they should have been cutscenes. I thought it was a bug when it first happened. I was like, oh no, the camera's got stuck. But no, that's the camera angle for the whole game when you're having those conversations with people running areas. It's weird. It's not.
It
finished.
is definitely weird. It seems like parts of it are really low budget.
Yeah.
Like feels like they put a lot of effort into the writing and the cutscenes, and then just like little things like that where it's just, you're just standing there and the camera's off kilter in the back corner of the room, or
That's so weird.
Or when you capture an area and like the cars drive in and there's like 50 guys get out of the cars and they like walk around like little robots to the thing, and you're like, oh my god, what is that going on? And it's buggy. Like I saw a lot of, but it's buggy in a nice sort of harmless way, at least in my experience.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, there's just some really good like bodies freaking out, and that stuff doesn't bother me. That it's fun when it's harmless visual bugs like that.
Yeah.
But it's a little rough in some, not rough, but it's a little like low, like janky and kind of low rent in some ways, which don't necessarily bother me, but when it's 30 hours, that sort of will start to wear me down. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this game. I don't know if I'm going to finish it, or if I'm just going to watch it, or just sort of play like a couple hours every week until March or something when I'm done with it.
Yeah, I found the gameplay satisfying enough to keep coming back. I kind of would put it on one of my monitors, and then I would like listen to a video on the other monitor, because there's really nothing going on in the story for a large chunk of the game. I will say the back 5 hours is really, really good. It's as good, if not better, than the first 5 hours. So if you have the time, like
you're not helping.
Maybe like 2 hours a week, just like get a chunk of the city done, and then by the end of 2017, you'll see the ending.
Oh, I've seen the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say that I like is I really like their solution to driving waypoints. In like in Watch Dogs, for example, it's just like a giant blue line on the ground in the world to tell you where to turn when you're driving. In Grand Theft Auto, like, they never do that because they're so in love with their world that they don't want to like taint it with visual cues. You have to be staring at your minimap the whole time. Mafia's solution is like these fake black and white road signs at the corner that tell you when to turn or go straight.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was a really nice, simple way to convey, like, to tell you where you're going, and it like fits in the world nicely. It's visually clean and simple and effective, and I thought that was a good solution. That was just one of those things where it's like, oh, whoever thought of that is smart, and GTA should borrow this.
Yeah.
Instead of me having to stare at a minimap the entire game, when you're driving.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was just a small observation. Mafia's, man, if it was linear, God, it'd be so good.
Yes. Good foundations, stretch very thin in the middle to the point where a lot of people won't make it all the way to the end. It's a shame, because I think it could have been something really, really awesome. But,
and I can't stress enough how good the cutscenes are.
Yeah, they're good.
I think they're second only to Naughty Dog stuff, honestly. Naughty Dog is still the king of it, but like, this is probably the second best I've seen in terms of just general quality of performances and writing and style and all that. It's friggin' amazing. But Can't win them all, I guess.
I think I wouldn't recommend Mafia 3 just because there's so much stuff currently out. But if you have a break in video games, you don't know what to play, and it's on sale, then I think, it's not bad. I think it's worth having a look at. It's definitely worth at least trying if you can get it for a nice price.
Yeah, it seems like a good like winter or summer quiet time game, you know, when there's not a lot coming out. There's not much that I'm interested in, at least for January and most of February. And summer is always quiet, so like it might be good for one of those, you know, where you can sort of poke at it for a month or two. It might be a lot more enjoyable that way, yeah. Okay, Gears of War 4, next on the docket. Boy, did I not think I was interested in Gears of War 4.
Yeah.
Up until playing it. When they announced it, like a year and a half ago, it was like, yeah, okay, of course they're making Gears of War 4. And then they talked about it for a long time in like weird ways where it's like, we're going back to its horror roots. And I was like, what are you talking about? Gears of War is not a fucking horror game. It's like, Gears of War is like 10 pounds of ground beef stuffed into like a 5-pound bag, and those are your main characters. And they walk around and chainsaw things in half, and like
it had some horror themes, kind of, in the first game.
Sure, in the first game, sort of, but like, come on. Like when they said that, I was like, what are you guys doing? That's not Gears of War that I know, at least. And then they showed that gameplay demo at E3, and it's like, oh, yeah, this looks like Gears of War.
Yep.
And the dialogue was like really out of context. It was like, oh, I don't know about this. And I really didn't think I'd even play it, but then all the reviews came out and said it was really good, and I was like, oh, well, I'll play it. I might be down for Gears of War 4. I wasn't sure if I wanted more Gears of War, because it's been a while. 5 years, I think, since 3. And turns out Gears of War 4 is pretty good.
Pretty good.
I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
I should say I don't really like Gears of War 1.
Oh, really?
At all.
Interesting.
I think it's really horribly boring and ugly.
It is ugly.
But I only played it in I think right before 3 came out, so I didn't play it in 2006. And I really like Gears of War 2, and I really, really like Gears of War 3. I think 3 is the best in the series and one of the better, like, all-around packages of a game from last generation, I'd say.
It's a good game.
Yeah, so Gears of War 4, that game is exceptionally simple.
Yes.
It does very little new, almost nothing new, in fact.
Yeah, I've got a little note written down here that out of all the sequels that we are going to talk about, I think Gears of War 4 breaks the mold the least out of all of them.
Yes, it is the least inspired of the sequels, I would say. Which was like a concern going in. But it turns out that at least for the one game, I'm going to compare this, I think, a few times to Halo 4, because this is the first, it's the 4th game in the major Microsoft franchise, and it's by a new developer, and, it's sort of setting the stones for the future of a big franchise. In terms of making a good Gears game, they exceeded in every single way.
Yeah.
And I think it is a better 4 than Halo 4 as well.
Yes.
Because it must be hard, because you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Like, if you make something wild and crazy, you piss off all the hardcore fans, but you get someone like me interested in it. And if you don't do anything new, you keep all the hardcore fans happy, and you make someone like me go, oh, this looks kind of boring. And Halo 4, I don't think, struck the right balance, especially with its campaign. But Gears of War 4 is like, I've only played the campaign. I will not touch the multiplayer ever, because Gears of War's multiplayer is the scariest multiplayer on Earth. And Horde mode we will get to in due time. Once we can organize a session with 5 people
That'd be
across half of the planet, we will play Horde, and it'll be good, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I'm only talking about the campaign here, and the campaign, there's literally nothing new gameplay-wise that I could tell. I guess you can
there's tiny, minute differences.
It's like, could you pull guys from behind cover before?
You couldn't.
No. I don't think so. Yeah. There are some new weapons, which we'll get to.
New weapons and enemies.
And there's new characters and some new enemies, even though they're pretty similar to the last ones. Some of them, at least. So there's like almost nothing new in the game.
It's like a fresh, what do you call it? Fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, and I'm astounded at how well it works, honestly, just across the board. I played that game in a couple of sittings, and it was just like thoroughly enjoyable, and it was incredibly simple, and I played it on the PC, and it's like the best PC port of all time.
Yeah, wow.
And it reminded me how nice something simple can be. Like, there are a lot of games this year that had a lot going on, like Titanfall, you know, all this, there's leveling up, and like, oh, there's this platforming and mechanics, and Watch Dogs and Dishonored, like all these different games have like tons of things going on in them. And Gears of War 4 sort of and even Call of Duty this year has a lot going on in it.
Yeah.
Gears of War 4 Gears of War 4 satisfied the simple, like, I just want to not really think too much. I just want to sit back and like just turn my brain off and enjoy something. And usually Call of Duty satisfies that. Last year Black Ops 3 was so horrible I never even finished it. And Infinite Warfare is, we'll get to it, but it's like, I like it, but there's a fucking lot going on in that game. Gears of War 4 is just like this kind of boring, exceptionally simple, like comfort food game that I think works really, really well, and I like just about every single thing about it.
Yeah, I think there's always something satisfying about a mindless corridor shooter, if that makes sense, where you're just going forward, killing stuff
just hold
in the way,
forward,
and you're just going forward. And surprisingly, on this list, we're basically talking about the majority of this is like sequels and shooters. There wasn't many corridor shooters this year. So I think
there really weren't.
There's something always satisfying about the simplicity of just shooting things until you can push forward. And Gears of War 4 was, for me, that type of game.
Yeah, and like the shooting is the shooting. It felt unchanged.
Yeah.
Gears of War 4 is, it's still a good shooter. The movement is still good. The shooting is still good. I'll say, like from the story stuff, I thought the prologue was really cool, where you're like sort of popping around different periods of history in the Gears universe. I like lore in games. I find it interesting. I don't know anything about Gears of War 4's lore. I've never gone down that rabbit hole and never will. I swear, I promise. But I liked just seeing different parts of, you see like the fight against the humans. You see the, what do they call it? E-Day?
Yes.
You see the end of Gears of War 3 from a different perspective.
Yeah, I like that too.
I thought that was cool. I thought it would be neat if Halo had done that, where you can see different parts of the universe just in a really condensed period of time. And then like the first couple hours, I would say, of that game are kind of boring. And not in a good way. It's kind of like you're in the sort of city like structure, and you're just fighting like two different robot enemies.
Yeah, the robot section was the weakest part, I think.
And then you get like the fabricator, and it's like, okay, still fighting the same two enemies, and it was fine, but it was just kind of boring. But once they started introducing some more variety in the robots, it started to get a little more interesting. I like a couple of the robot weapons, especially the shotgun that fires twice with each trigger pull. I use that for like half the game.
That's great.
But then it really starts to take off, I thought, when Marcus showed up. And I mean, spoilers, Marcus is in the game. They put that in all the marketing.
Yes, it's in the trailers and stuff.
I wish that they hadn't done that. I understand completely why they did that, because it's like, it makes sense. But I wish that I hadn't known he was in that game, because it would have been even more exciting.
It would have been great.
Going in, knowing that he was in that game, I thought, well, whatever, it's Marcus. I don't give a shit about Marcus. But when he showed up, I was like, yeah, Marcus.
Yeah, it was actually
Marcus is back.
It was a really, really clever move, because I think the thing that is most different about 4 is the tone. And it's kind of almost like it went down the same line as Watch Dogs 2, where it replaced the gruff old soldier with a bunch of kids. And that's what the dialogue in Gears of War 4 feels like. With like a bunch of kids, they're like, hooray, yeah, woo! And then maybe they were like, this is maybe a bit too much. We need some like grumpy old men in here.
Yes.
So like, let's just shove Marcus in there. And it works. It really, really works, because I feel like maybe the dialogue would have got a little bit grinding if Marcus wasn't in it. There is an expanse of the game where Marcus isn't in it, and then he comes back, and then when Marcus is back, you're like, hooray, Marcus is back! He acts as a really good balance for kind of like the quirky happy-go-lucky teens, which I'm not sure everyone would have acclimatized to if it was just them for the whole game.
The game as a whole is a very lighthearted in a lot of ways, and genuinely kind of funny at times. I think Gears of War has always, well, 2 and 3 at least, they were good at, I mean, there was a lot of like very serious stuff in those games, but they were pretty self-aware in those old games. Not maybe as, you played 2 and 3 recently, right?
I played 3
or
recently.
3 at least, yeah. So I mean, like, there's lots of serious stuff in there, but they do have moments of comedy. Like the Ice-T stuff in Gears of War 3 is friggin' hilarious.
Yeah,
when
like,
he just like leaves that game by giving everyone the finger and just like riding off on an elevator. You sawing your way out of a giant worm in Gears of War 2 is hilarious. Like there's good like schlocky funny stuff in those old games, but this one does it even better. I think they really knew what they had and knew when it was. Like, they know that this is a goofy series, even if there is serious stuff in the game.
When I played Gears of War, it felt like as they were developing the game, they almost got more confident with their ability to be a bit silly, because the beginning of the game played it reasonably straight, and then you go into this mine, and then when you're leaving the mine, there's this really over-the-top sequence, which is really good fun.
Yeah,
and then the end boss, I literally cheered at the end boss because it was so stupid, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It kind of felt like they were like, you know what, maybe we could do this ridiculous thing. I think we've pushed these characters far enough, and it will work now, and it did. I really enjoyed the tone of the game. From the E3 demos, I didn't know how I was going to feel about these characters, and I wouldn't say I love them as much as the original 4. But I think they did a pretty good job, as you said.
Yeah, they're good. They're likable. Yeah,
they are.
They're simple, but they're likable. And old man Marcus Phoenix is great with his like giant beard and just like he doesn't give a shit about anything. And him yelling about his tomatoes was like genuinely hilarious.
Yeah.
And they bring back, I won't say who, but they bring back a couple of the old characters at the end as well. And I was kind of like, yeah, I could see Gears of War 5 with like this big like 6 or 8 man squad of people.
It works.
That would be fun. It works really well, and like the relationships that they have with the younger characters are really good.
Yeah, they kind of blend the old characters into the story a little bit.
Yeah, I was just thoroughly surprised throughout most of my time with that game, where I was like, man, this is so easygoing and enjoyable. It's just shocking almost how enjoyable it was.
Yeah, it was a good game.
The last thing I would say is that it ends poorly, which really bummed me out.
Yeah.
It ends with like a really great section where you're in these giant robots, and it was hilarious and looked great. And then the boss fight was like, okay, this is pretty stupid. And then there's like literally a 2-minute cutscene, and it goes to credits, and you're like, what? Like, I genuinely thought there was going to be another hour of game, or an hour or 2 or 3. I would have loved to play another 3 hours of that campaign.
Yeah, me too.
I would have liked even like another 5 minutes of cutscenes, but instead it was like it's literally like 2 minutes long, and they tease something with like a pendant, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I had to go up to Google and Google what that was. Upon Googling it and finding the answer, I was like, oh, that's actually really interesting. I am very curious to see what this means and what they do with it in the future, but like I had to Google it, and so the immediate impression I got when the game ended was, oh, that was sort of how I felt. I was like, oh, that's how you're ending it. Oh, that's a bummer. I wish it had just stuck the landing slightly better, but it doesn't take away from the overall experience, I think. And I will say, I'm down for Gears of War 5, but they need to do more in Gears of War 5. That's new. They need to do some more interesting things with the gameplay in 5. The way I think they need to do like what Halo 5 did, which is add some big fundamental changes to the sandbox of the gameplay. And that'll be controversial because not everyone likes what they did with Halo 5, but like they can't make Gears of War 5 be as unimaginative as 4 was in terms of gameplay, because it was fine once and it was fine after 5 years, but I don't think they can get away with doing the same thing again in 5.
Not after this year, where nearly every sequel took a risk and did something completely different, and I think for almost all of them it has paid off. And I didn't expect this list of sequels to be so interesting and varied. I kind of thought we were going to be getting a lot of copy and paste with a 2016 stamped on it. I think the most surprising thing about this list is how surprised I've been by most of these sequels, and Gears of War 4 comes at the bottom of that list when it comes to surprises.
Yes. And yeah, I hope that they look at Halo 5, and, because it's Microsoft and internal Microsoft franchises, I hope they can look at Halo 5 and be like, okay, this did well, and it made profound changes to how Halo plays, and people still bought it and were okay with it and genuinely like that game a lot. So I hope that they do more with 5, because I want to play 5. I want to... 4 reinvigorated my enjoyment of Gears of War as a franchise, which I did not think I cared for it anymore. And so I hope that they can do more with 5. But that's a long ways off, so we'll worry about that in the future.
I did try some of the multiplayer and the Horde. I don't really have a huge amount to say because they are kind of like the campaign. They play it pretty close to the original games. They follow the same themes. I tried some multiplayer and I didn't play much of it because, as you said, it's quite intimidating and people are incredible at it.
Oh god, it's terrifying.
But it puts some modes in there for some casuals like me. It had a variation of gun game where the guns change depending on how many kills your team gets. And it also had one mode where you can only respawn if your teammate kills one of the other teams, which I thought was an interesting take on the the game modes. But I played for like 2 days. I was like, yeah, this is kind of interesting. But when it comes to Horde mode, it's also pretty similar. You have a fabricator in Horde mode, which lets you build defenses, which is kind of unique and different, and it also has bosses. And I like the bosses. The bosses are pretty intimidating, and it mixes it up every 10 rounds. I like in a Horde / like Nazi zombies type game mode when you know that something bad is coming at a certain round. It adds some like suspense, and you don't know which boss you are going to get in Horde mode. So that's a nice change. But as we were saying with the campaign, it plays it too close to the wire when it comes to the rest of the Gears of War campaign.
The defenses stuff was in 3's Horde mode. They changed it a bit. I think the biggest change, and there were also obviously bosses, which the boss fights in Gears of War have always been kind of scary because they're always like these giant monsters.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I noticed, I actually played like 5 rounds of Horde or something, and it was a disaster because I did it just random matchmaking and everyone quit. But the biggest thing that seemed to be a change was the classes, different classes, which I have not dug into at all. But I know they sort of are different roles to play. Like, this person can repair the defenses. This person should be collecting the money. That stuff is all new and seems interesting. I haven't dug into it though, so I don't know how different it actually is.
It doesn't add a huge impact to Horde.
No.
The foundations of Horde are still just hiding behind a wall and shooting enemies. But it's enough. They did enough.
Yeah, and Horde has always sort of been like, they don't need to do much to this. Like, they got it so right with Gears of War 3, I think, with the defenses. And I really look forward to playing Horde, because Gears of War 3's Horde mode provided some of the best highs of last generation. Doing the 50 waves were, that was stressful, but also
Horde is going to be fun.
Superb.
I'm excited for our sessions too.
Yeah, so that's Gears. I think it's great. I really... it's actually one of my the best surprises of the year, honestly, even though it's the least inspired game of the year, perhaps. It does so little new, but I was just shocked at how much I enjoyed it, and I really, really didn't think I was even going to play it. So good on them. They nailed it. It must be horrifying for a new developer to take on such a big franchise, and for them to nail it so thoroughly is impressive. And I think it's probably second to Gears of War 3, I would say. I'd probably put 3, 4, 2, 1, something like that. We don't talk about Judgment. I've never played it, so I don't know.
It's not good.
I await playing Horde mode to finalize that rating. It's not as good as 3, I know that, but I think it's probably the second best overall Gears of War game, which is really impressive from a completely new studio. So good on them. Good
game.
On them. Yeah.
So moving on to Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1, I'll start off because I feel like out of me and you, I'm the least invested in the franchise. You're quite a big Battlefield fan. I've tried, I think, a lot of them. I think 4, 3, Bad Company 1 and 2, and I've never really been sold on the multiplayer of Battlefield games, and the campaigns are very hit and miss. I really liked the Bad Company campaigns, but 3 and 4 are kind of just trashy.
Oof, yeah.
But I'm going to skip straight to the multiplayer. We'll talk about the campaign afterwards, because the multiplayer is the main chunk, the main fact of Battlefield. And I had quite a rough time with my beginning in Battlefield 1. I was getting stomped on a lot. But for me nowadays, I don't have a lot of spare time to invest in multiplayer games, because I think me and you are both variety gamers. We like to play a lot of games instead of investing all our time into being amazing at one game. So for me, I like I like a multiplayer game that I can be bad at and still enjoy.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I had some frustrations with Battlefield at the beginning, because I kind of just didn't, I felt kind of like lost, headless. I didn't really know what I was doing. But because Battlefield multiplayer is so visually cinematic and amazing to just be a part of, I was happy to push through to the point where I felt competent in multiplayer, and I can say quite easily that Battlefield 1 is my favourite multiplayer game of this year. And I was not expecting to be invested in Battlefield 1 at all. I think the multiplayer is one of the most technically impressive multiplayers I've ever seen. It sounds amazing. The destructibility is like mesmerizing. It's always amazing to see a plane crash into like a windmill.
It's also kind of like
that.
borderline hilarious when at the end of a level, like some of the hills, like one of the hills on that one map with the big fortress, or not the fortress one, but one of the hills, like some of the hill like sort of peaks in the map where there's a Czech or a conquest flag. They're so bombed out by the end of a match that there's like almost nothing left except for giant craters everywhere, and it's amazing, the destruction in that game. Yeah,
it really is. And I think the multiplayer does a really, really strong job with variety, and also making every class pretty fun to play. I mess around with I can't even remember the names of the classes now. Medic, support, scout. I've experimented with all of them, and I do play more medic than the other classes, but I definitely dabble in everything, even when it comes to being in a tank and being in a plane. Usually in Battlefield, in the older Battlefields, I really just preferred being a foot soldier and being an assault guy. I never really experimented, but in Battlefield 1 I've had a lot of fun being everything and experimenting with every aspect of the game. And when you enjoy every aspect of a large-scale multiplayer, it makes every game different, varied, and exciting. And I have just absolutely loved my time in Battlefield 1 multiplayer. And this isn't how you should rate a game, because it's not relevant to anyone else in the world except for us. But I really, really enjoyed making the myth videos on Battlefield 1
really
as well.
They're really fun.
Which isn't a critical way to analyze a game, but still.
Well, it's fair because like
blast.
sometimes doing the myths for games is just so fucking exhausting.
Yes.
And if it's a game that you don't like, it's especially bad. We haven't really done any of that in a while. But like some games make it really difficult to myth bust, where it's just like I just don't even want to play this. But like Battlefield has always had a lot of goofiness to it. And also a great sense of scope and cinematic presentation, and it's made the myth busting really enjoyable. That last set was particularly magical.
Yes. And even when the game was so busy that we couldn't find an empty server, and we were having to try and do these myths like in the midst of a massive battle, and it was like frustrating, it was still fun. It was still an absolute blast. I really don't have many bad things to say about Battlefield 1 multiplayer. It's really great.
Yeah, so I like Battlefield a lot. I played Battlefield 1, or Bad Company 1 and 2. 2 especially was like one of my favorite multiplayer experiences on the 360. I think Bad Company 2 is goddamn incredible, the multiplayer.
Yeah.
I played a lot of 1943, the like weird arcade World War II game. That was great.
Forgot about that one. That was good.
And I put about 100 hours into Battlefield 3, and I put about 100 hours into Battlefield 4. Yes, I am a Battlefield fan for sure. And when they started like rumors coming out about, it's going to be World War I was like, fuck you. I don't want to play World War I Battlefield, because World War I hasn't really been taught. It's not covered in our education here in North America, at least, because it was.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, it is in Canada. but because Canada had World War One was like really important to Canada and its sort of foundation in a lot of ways. But it's still not. It's not World War II. You know, World War II gets so much coverage in all aspects, like in just general media, in education, and all that. So World War One is sort of like in North America, everyone sort of goes like World War One, like that was just trench warfare and gas, and that's it. Ooh. And it played. You know, I know it. World War One was a lot more important to Europe, for sure. And so when they announced, when it was like rumors like, oh, it's World War One, I was like, oh, I don't know. And then they announced it and showed that trailer. And it's like, oh, fine, okay, yes. Yeah. And the thing I like most about Battlefield, I think, is two things. It's the incredible unscripted cinematic nature of it all, and also just the general wide-scale chaos of those games. And I think Battlefield 1 does one of those things really well and the other slightly less well. I think it is absolutely the most cinematic of the Battlefield games by like kind of a lot. It helps that it looks incredible and it sounds incredible, but just I don't know what it is, but it just has I feel like there are more of those moments in this game than the past games, even though it's often on a slightly smaller scale, where it's like we're running up a hill, like when we played, we're running up a hill and it's foggy as shit. You can't see 2 feet in front of you. You know, when the fog rolls in, we're running up a hill to storm a conquest point, and there's like 15 guys on our team all running up the hill at the same time. And there's a lot of incredible voice acting in the multiplayer. All the AI, like yeah. Your dudes are all sort of shouting. And then out of the fog comes a flaming Jeep. It's just on fire, and it's driving towards all of us, and it's just hauling ass down this mountain on fire through the fog. And the driver in it, the player, you know, AI drive, like it's a human driver, but like he's like screaming, like the voice actor in the game is screaming, not the human player. And it just like flies past us all, and like everyone charging up the hill just sort of stops and like turns around and watches this flaming car just drive off into the fog. And it's those moments that are so magical and incredible because it's completely unscripted, and it's all driven by other human beings, and this game just brings the visuals, the sound, like the ragdolls, the explosions, the weather. It brings it all together so well to make so many little moments like that where you're just like, fuck, that was amazing. What just happened? Yeah. Or when like all the dudes on your team just sort of scream and charge towards something. It's sort of like heart pounding every once in a while. And
we haven't even talked about the what are the big epic vehicles, the Zeppelin, the Dreadnought, what are they called?
The Behemoths?
Yes, the Behemoths.
Yes.
We haven't even mentioned those yet.
Yeah, I mean the boat one isn't as interesting. The train's pretty cool, but the Zeppelin is just incredible. And every time it crashes, the fact that it can crash and just explode anywhere on the map and fall down. Every single time one of those crashes, I feel like everyone just sort of stops what they're doing and watches.
Yeah.
And it's never not incredible. And so I think it captures this sort of cinematicness of Battlefield better than any Battlefield. I don't think it's quite as good as the chaos of 3 and 4. It's a different type of chaos. It's like a smaller scale chaos. It's more infantry chaos. Yeah. And that's great. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. But like I miss the madness of there being boats, jeeps, tanks, helicopters, and jets all interacting in one level.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's lost a little bit of that for me, but it's not so significant that I don't like Battlefield 1. You know, it's great, and it's just I understand why Battlefield 4 still has a pretty strong player population, let's just say, because there's a certain chaos of Battlefield 3 and 4 that 1 doesn't have just because of the era, because it's limited to planes and tanks, and that's about it, you know. So
yeah,
it's a small gripe to have. I have not put a lot of time into the multiplayer because I know what Battlefield is, and I know like I'm going to get to Battlefield, and I will probably play Battlefield 1 for like 18 months or whatever, as long as their premium pass lasts. Yeah, the multiplayer is excellent. I like that there's a limited number. There's not a huge number of guns. There's not a lot of customization, because in 3 and 4 there were so many guns and so many sights to put on those guns and so many attachments. I was just like, I don't fucking know what gun to use. Just this one, I guess. I don't know. This one's kind of cool looking.
It's not too difficult to get a grip on Battlefield 1.
Yeah, they've scaled it back in some nice ways, and they've also, like, the shooting changes are really good. And they made enough small changes to it and slowed it down slightly, I think, compared to 3 and 4. Made it a little more manual, you know, if that makes sense. There's no laser guided weapons or anything. You have to sort of lead your shots more. They really nailed it, and I was slightly concerned when they announced World War I, but that it wouldn't feel like Battlefield, but it does. It feels absolutely like Battlefield, and also good on DICE for going in the complete opposite direction of everything else. It was the absolute right decision to say, nope, we're done with the future for now, we're going back to the past. So they deserve commendation, yeah.
How much of the campaign have you played?
Oh, God, like almost none. I played the first mission through, the tank one. I did that whole thing. And I started the plane one, and I started the runner, the Australian one, and that's it.
Yeah.
They're all... You go ahead,
I have beaten all of the stories. I thought that it was kind of unique and cool to split the campaign up, and you can do it in whichever order you want. I think it's a nice way to represent a war by dotting you all over the world, because it is a world war and it's not just America, which is nice. Some are much superior to others. I really enjoyed the second story. You are some American guy who gets in a plane when he's not supposed to, and it's a really fun story, and I liked the air combat because it felt a little bit different from the multiplayer version of it, because there's like hundreds of planes in the sky, which you can't do in the multiplayer. And I thought that had really good storytelling in that specific story. The characters were really good. But apart from that, none of them really reached that peak for me. There's a really amazing sequence at the end of that campaign as well, where you're against 2 Zeppelins, and it's really awesome. But the tank one, it was okay. It was a small personal story. The characters were not too bad. I didn't like the Australian one. It wasn't that interesting to me. The Italian one was really short. And then there's the Lawrence of Arabia one, which is kind of okay because it's like stealth based, but then you don't actually have to be stealthy in it. But it was inconsistent, the campaign, and overall I don't think it was that great. But I appreciate them at least trying to represent a war more accurately.
Yeah, I
feel like I don't know, it was just a bit off.
It's a big improvement over 3 and 4's campaign for sure, because they were just profoundly forgettable in every single way, and kind of bad storytelling. And from what I've played, it just seems completely fine. But also, like, I don't think I will play any more of it because it's just kind of boring. And I don't like how much one-man army stuff there is, where you're just like, I donned my suit of armor, and then I charged forward and killed fucking the entire German army myself. And it's just like, okay, guy, like, it's from what I played, like, every mission, from the little bit I played of the 3 missions, it felt like every mission is just like, and then he killed 50 planes, and then he killed 14 tanks, and then he gunned down. Sad
when like his brother dies.
Yeah, and then it's like, and he gunned down like 75,000 bad enemy soldiers, and it's like.
I think what they really should have done, if they wanted to do this grand summary of a war and show every angle, they really should have at least had one campaign in Germany from the Germans' perspective. If they wanted to do like a really broad picture, I think they should have done one from the Germans' perspective. I think that would have been interesting. If they wanted this whole thing like, oh, we're all just people, they didn't show anything from the enemy's perspective. It was just everyone murdering.
The enemy in that game is just like these like very stupid AI guys that take like 2 bullets and you just kill like thousands of them. And I don't know. The campaign, I probably won't play any more of it because it's just I just don't care. Like I just don't care. I started the plain one and I'm like, why is this a fucking comedy? Like I'm not interested. I'm done. And
I like that one.
I think the problem is that like the multiplayer provides so many more interesting little personal stories.
Yeah.
Like where you can get this great run where you like charge one base and then move into the next one and like have a shootout, and you know, when you have like a good run in that game, when you're alive for a long time, it's more effective than anything in the campaign. Same with the unscripted cinematic things that happen in the multiplayer are better than any of the things that I saw in the campaign, and it's a big improvement over 3 and 4, absolutely. And good on them for, like you said, good on them for trying different things. I think, you know, multiple short stories is a cool idea. Good on them for capturing multiple areas and venues and people and factions and vehicles and stuff from the from World War One. But it was like, it's just, the multiplayer is just so much more interesting in its storytelling abilities, honestly, that I just won't probably play any more of the campaign, because it's just like,
it also felt too much like a giant tutorial for the multiplayer as well.
yeah.
They didn't feel like massively separate entities.
No, and I know how to play the multiplayer as well, so it's like...
Yeah. I played multiplayer for like 20 hours before I even went into the campaign, which I think a lot of people will also do. So I don't know.
So I think the multiplayer is excellent. I hope that their map stuff is good. Usually it has been for 3 and 4. And the campaign's fine. That's all. That's about as positive as I would speak about the campaign. It's fine.
Yes.
Whereas 3 and 4 were like kind of actively bad. So they're
Step
getting there.
in the right direction.
They're getting there. Yeah. Maybe Battlefield 2, 6, 5. Oh god, I don't know how they're going to name the next Battlefield.
6. I don't know.
I don't know.
That's their
maybe
problem.
the next game will have a really good campaign. Maybe Battlefront 2 will have a good campaign. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, Battlefield 1's really strong. I look forward to playing more of it in the new year once all these games have just given me some breathing room. Because
there's so many.
It's great. It's great. Yeah.
It's great. All right, so moving on to Titanfall 2. You take the lead for this one.
Okay,
take the lead.
let's talk multiplayer first.
Okay.
Titanfall 2, they did that tech test in August, the technical test on the PS4, and I guess on the Xbox. And I played that technical test and was like actively put off by everything about it, almost.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was like heartbroken. I was like, no, what have they done to Titanfall? Like it just didn't feel right. It felt too much like Call of Duty, and the 2 maps that were in the tech test were garbage. And I played like a session of that and then stopped because I was so depressed by Titanfall 2's tech test. So I was like genuinely bummed out about the multiplayer going into it, and then it came out, and like 1 game into the multiplayer I was like, oh, who was I kidding? This is fucking incredible. It turns out having all of the different Titans and pilot, I don't know what was the word, all the different like abilities and unlockables that weren't in the tech test makes all the difference, really. I love that game's multiplayer so much. Titanfall 2's multiplayer is the best. It's what I want. It's like the successor to Call of Duty that I've been waiting for since Modern Warfare 2, honestly. I played a lot of COD 4 and a lot of Modern Warfare 2, and then since then I've basically never touched a Call of Duty multiplayer because they're all just so uninteresting to me. I played a bit of Advanced Warfare. I liked Advanced Warfare's multiplayer, but I've been waiting for a game that, you know, sort of takes the Call of Duty gunplay and advances it both in progression and in gameplay mechanics in a way that's interesting. And Titanfall 1 was getting there. But I think Titanfall 2 brings the gameplay and adds to it enough progression that makes it so that I just want to play that game all the time. And it's getting bad. It's getting bad. I've hit level 50 on PC and have prestiged on PS4. And
Whoa.
yeah.
Shit.
I know. Fuck. There's the thing that, like I said, the thing that they needed most in the sequel was stuff to unlock, and there is so much stuff to unlock in that game. Every single time you complete a match, it's like you level up your gun, you level up this other gun, you level up your Titan, you level up your character. Now you get this, and this. Congratulations, go play another game. And you're like, shit, I just unlocked like 7 things from playing that one match. I should play another game. And the progression stuff, they really nailed it, because the first game, it was like the first assault rifle you got was the assault rifle to use, and it killed everything fastest, and it was way too overpowered. Titanfall 2, almost all the guns in that game feel viable. There's a lot of stuff to unlock. It's fucking fast-paced. It is so fast-paced. The battery mechanic they added to the Titan, I didn't think I liked it at first, but I've actually come to really enjoy it, because it encourages a little more team play, and it's also stressful, which is like you can pull a battery out of an enemy Titan and put it into your Titan or a friendly Titan, and it gives them a big overshield basically. And I know how you feel about the multiplayer, but I will say that I adore Titanfall 2's multiplayer in a way I did not think. It has its hooks in me in a way I haven't felt in a very, very, very long time. I thought I was over the Call of Duty-ish formula of very fast-paced, very quick time to kill, progress, unlock this, unlock that, unlock this, and do it all over again and over again and over again. I thought I was over that. Turns out, no, I am not over it at all. Before you say anything, just a sec. The only negative I have with the multiplayer is that the maps in the sequel are a little flat and a little visually uninteresting, but they're getting, I think all their DLC is going to be free, so I bet that most of their maps going forward address that. And that's the only bad thing I have to say about the multiplayer. Now I'm ready for you to shit all over it.
So I will start by saying that I started with the campaign in Titanfall 2, and I'll let you have your say when it comes to the campaign, but I'll just quickly say that I think the campaign is amazing.
Yes.
It really, really integrates the movement in Titanfall a lot. There's so many opportunities to jump around, wall run like a madman. Every level is creative and innovative, and they have some fun novelties which we will not spoil in some levels, which I think could run entire games because they're so good. There's one level in particular which is so amazing that I couldn't figure out how they even pulled it off technically. I was like, I don't understand how this is working. And the campaign was so interesting. And the only multiplayer game I'd played before Titanfall 2 was Battlefield 1, which I was infatuated with. So that when I jumped into the Titanfall 2 multiplayer, I didn't have a very good time. Titanfall 2 is very overwhelming when it comes to multiplayer. If you have no experience in the original Titanfall as well, which I do not. I played a free weekend of Titanfall, and that's it. I had no idea what was going on. It's very hard to learn how to use a Titan as well if you're not used to using any of the Titans, because people are good. People are good at Titanfall 2. And as soon as you get in your Titan, if people know what they're doing, they're on top of your back, they're shooting you in the face with their level 50 Titan. And I'm like, I'm dead. What happened? Okay, I'm dead. I guess I'm dead. And when I first played Titanfall 2 multiplayer, I actively hated it. I absolutely hated it, because Titanfall 2 is not a fun game to get stomped on. It's not fun to do bad at. It feels bad. It's kind of like Call of Duty. All Twitch shooters feel bad to do bad at.
Yes.
This is why in Battlefield 1 I made a note to say that it's fun to be bad at Battlefield 1.
Yeah, Battlefield 1 is so big and there's so much happening that you can just sort of do whatever you want and enjoy yourself. Yeah.
But because we were doing the Myth series, I have played more of the multiplayer, and I have had a game where I did good, and it is better. Like when you're good on the ground, when you're a good infantryman and you get your Titan first, and then you kick ass as a Titan because no one has their Titan yet, and then you beat a few Titans, and then you escape into the dropship if you lose or you kill the enemy dropship. It feels good, but I don't have the time. I don't have the time to get good at Titanfall 2.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm going to be in a constant state of frustration. And with so many other games out, I just don't care.
Yeah.
I really don't care.
Totally
I don't think the maps are good. I think they're ugly. And the environments in the campaign are really nice. They're really nice and varied. You go from forest to like these fun factory settings. There's some really cool set pieces in the campaign. And I feel there's a lot of combinations of things that went into me not enjoying my beginning with Titanfall 2. And, sorry, the multiplayer. I don't think it's bad, because I don't think you can love a campaign of a game and then take that game, shove it into online, and then hate the game because of it, if that makes sense. The campaign is so good, and I know the multiplayer is good, I just don't have the time to invest into enjoying it.
Yeah.
I've given up. I am not going to say just because I don't like the multiplayer that I think the multiplayer is bad. I just don't find it very fun to be bad at it, and I don't currently have the time to be good at it. I wish it was a bit more varied when it comes to the maps, but a lot of people are having fun. You yourself are saying that it's a good game, and I trust that if you are good at Titanfall 2, you'll have a good time, but I'm not, and I don't have time to get good at it.
The campaign is great. I wanted...
Oh, yeah.
As soon as they said in the sequel that they're doing a campaign, it was like, well, of course you're doing a campaign. And also, it's going to be great because, I mean, these are the people that made Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2. I mean, there's obviously new people there, but, like, the core creatives of Titanfall 1 and 2 are the same core creatives, like the same 50 core creatives or so of COD 4 and MW2. And, boy, those games' campaigns sure are great. And Titanfall 2... It's a little disjointed. It's very obviously like they brainstormed these awesome ideas and they were like, okay, how do we like tie this together into something somewhat cohesive? And who cares? I don't give a shit. Every level has its own thing. Every level is, well, the first couple levels are fine. They're a little like Gears of War, actually. The first couple levels are kind of boring.
Yeah.
And then you get to the factory level and like the sideways world platforming section, which like almost made me pass out because it was so wacky. Where the whole thing is tilted on its side, 90 degrees.
I was really impressed by like the integration of the movement into the campaign. I didn't expect there to be large platforming sections in the campaign. I thought there was going to be a lot of shooting and wall running, but there were some really, really creative platforming sections in that game, and I'm a big platformer fan. And I feel like there's been a little theme this year with shooters, including a lot of great platforming moments. We're not going to talk about it now, because, spoiler, it might be in a video coming up, but Doom did the same thing, where there were some really surprising moments where like you're climbing up this tower for the whole game and it just felt really awesome. So that for me was one of the biggest like surprises of Titanfall, except for like the weird novelties, was how awesome the movement was in the campaign and how like creatively they included it in the level design.
I was concerned. Awesome. I don't know if I was concerned. I was curious to see how they could possibly integrate the biggest selling point of Titanfall, which is really the movement, I think, before it's the Titans. I was curious to see how they would use that in the campaign, and they use it in some really awesome ways, and there are parts of that are more of a puzzle platformer than shooter, and it strikes an excellent balance of shooting and gimmicks and platforming and puzzle in a really awesome way. And that game as a whole reminds me of Portal 2 in that, well, first of all, like that whole game actually, the levels, like the scale is so absurd a lot of the times. Like that giant factory underground is just like the most ridiculously massive thing I've ever seen. It's just like this preposterous, impossible, there's like no, like this is impossible to function and design in
it's
the
like
real
building
world.
Like neighborhoods.
Yeah, and it's built like in the same way that Aperture Science is just like this ridiculously massive science facility.
It's great.
And also in the same way, Portal 2 constantly felt like there was something new being added. This doesn't feel like things are being added because every level they take away that new thing that they added. Like they add it, use it for a level, and then it's gone. But every level was like, oh, this is a new thing. Oh, this is fun. Oh, what's this? Press what to what? What? There's a lot of really great moments in that campaign, and a lot of just really fun. It's got the right tone as well. Like, they're also sort of like Gears of War. It's like they know what's going on. This is goofy, and they have fun with it. BD is BD 7274. Yeah, BD or is it B? Yeah, whatever. The Titan is great. He's got a good personality. The bits where he throws you like a baseball are amazing. Yeah. That camp. I'm going to play. Anyway, I want to play it again because I played it about a month after it had come out with a lot of expectations going in. A lot of, there's a lot said about that campaign, and I got to it after about a month late. And so I went into it, and I had to resist playing it all in one sitting, honestly.
But it's really well paced.
Yeah, and it's not long. It's like 4 or 5 hours. But also I had a certain amount of like, this is cool. Yeah, okay. I was perhaps a little over promised on what Titanfall 2's campaign was.
Okay.
So I look forward to playing it again, knowing what it all is, and just enjoying it. Because I really liked the campaign, and I've come to like it even more since beating it. And I look forward to just playing it again without any expectations. Sort of like a Bioshock campaign, like Bioshock Infinite, where it's like, first time through, I'm like, okay, I think I like that. Let me play it again. Now that I know what it all is. And really soak it all in and be like, oh yeah, this game's great.
It was a lovely, lovely surprise, especially for me, because I had no excitement for Titanfall. It's not a franchise I've even bothered playing, and I didn't even think there was going to be a campaign. And then you're like, yes, there is, and apparently it's amazing, and it surpassed my expectations. I think it's one of the best shooter campaigns ever made, which is a big statement to make. And even though the multiplayer wasn't for me, it was a fun experience, the whole package. I was surprised because I thought I'd like the multiplayer and I didn't. And I didn't think I'd like the campaign, and I did. So that was a nice twist.
I was immensely confident from the moment that they said they were doing a campaign. I was like, oh, these guys know what they're doing. Like, they're going to make something good.
Fantastic.
I was surprised in the ways in which they made it. I expected just sort of like a Call of Duty thing where it's like, there's, some set pieces and you're shooting things. And instead, it's an immensely creative campaign and just a ton of fun, And I very much look forward to playing it again to really appreciate it fully. Titanfall 2 is an exceptional game, and I love everything about it.
It is great,
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to
Call of Duty.
Okay, moving on to... What do you want to do?
4. Let's do 4 first, because have you touched 4?
I have not.
Okay. First, for disclosure's purposes, we got copies of Call of Duty this year from Activision. Call of Duty 4, the remaster. You have not played it. I have.
Not yet. I will.
You should. The campaign. I mean, it's a very thorough remaster. The campaign. I really was only interested in the campaign, and I was especially curious to see if it held up because it's almost a decade old, and first-person shooters have gotten pretty crazy. Campaigns especially, and that campaign is excellent, and the remaster is the best remaster I think out there, second only to like the Halo 2 Anniversary remaster in its thoroughness. And Halo 2 gets the edge just because you can swap back and forth in the visuals. I really wish you could do that here, but like, it's a super thorough visual update. It looks good. It doesn't look like, it doesn't look like Infinite Warfare good, but it looks really good for what it is. It's not changing the art style in any way. It's just updating all the assets to look modern, and that's all they did, it seems, and that's fine because that campaign is still superb. I think
it's impressive stuff. 7 years,
it's really it came out in 2007, so 9 years.
Fucking
9 years old. A decade next year, along with Halo 3.
Oh
God. It's pretty low key, that campaign, compared to modern first-person shooters, especially compared to modern Call of Duty shooters. It's all just sort of, I forgot that you're just like one guy throughout that whole campaign, and it's not very big. It's not on a very large scale. It's there aren't a lot of crazy set pieces, but the couple that are there are still crazy. Like the nuke is still crazy, the sniping level is still great. The only negatives I have to say about that campaign are like, there's a little tiny bit too much of you standing outside of a door waiting for your AI guys to go through their animations to open a door for you. Like, there's a little bit
disguised loading screens.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Like, but there's just, you know, that worked a decade ago where it was like you're being led through this experience, and there's a lot of sort of standing around waiting for something to happen. Whereas nowadays it's like you open the door or something like that. But like,
weirdly enough, we're talking about Infinite Warfare in a minute, but I've actually found it weird in Infinite Warfare.
I agree. Yes.
Everyone goes,
why am I opening all the
Captain,
fucking doors?
And then you open the door. It's like, but I thought I was following you. I don't know.
It's
anyway.
like, no, I'm the boss. You open the goddamn door for me.
It's really weird.
Yes, I agree. But that's the only thing that stood out to me. And there were a couple of animations where it's like, this is an older game, so it's like, whatever. I mean, a couple of the animations are a little janky looking, but that's it. That's the only negative. I played it through, and I was like, man, what a great game. What a great, great game. I hope they do it for Modern Warfare 2 in 2 years or 3 years or whenever it is, because
I'd replay that.
Modern Warfare 2 is just so crazy, and I love it so much. I touched the multiplayer. I thought going in that I might be interested in it, in getting back into Call of Duty 4, but everything that I hate about Call of Duty is there in Call of Duty 4. I dislike
it's like PTSD going back into that realm.
Kind of, yeah. Like the time to kill is so fast.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it. The time to kill is ridiculous. The kill streak stuff just pisses me off. I don't like that when you die you lose your kill streak. I like the later Call of Duty games where it's like you can change up your kill streak so that you get it. It's like not as good of a kill streak, but you can still get it when you die. And Titanfall is great about that as well. That's part of the reason I like Titanfall, is that there's no penalty really to dying. You can get slight like Titan call time reductions, but I just get so mad when I'm trying to get a kill streak, and the spawns are terrible, and that multiplayer is gone for me. That I can't go back.
That's not that surprising, though.
No, it's not. I mean, I know a lot of people that like Call of Duty probably are enamored with this Remastered's multiplayer because it seems perfect. Like it feels and plays like Call of Duty 4 used to, I think. But the Call of Duty isms of the multiplayer are so intense that I was just like, I played 2 matches and it was like, nope, I'm done. I can't do this.
I watched some YouTube coverage of someone playing the multiplayer, and they kind of seem like the audience of Call of Duty fans who would have gone back to it, and by that I mean people who know every single grenade throw and route that you could possibly know on every map. Because I was watching this guy play, and like he started the game, he turned around and he just threw a grenade, and like he got like 3 kills, and it's for the hardcore old school Call of Duty fans, and I don't think anyone's ever going to casually get into the Call of Duty 4 Remastered, because boy, was the community behind that game passionate, and you are going to get stomped on.
Yeah.
And Call of Duty is not fun to be bad at, kind of like Titanfall 2, because I remember being very angry during my time through COD 4 and Modern Warfare 2.
Also, yeah, that is part of it. It's like literal PTSD of my anger and rage from those games. I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't.
I don't want to see myself like this again.
Oh my god, those are dark days. Wow. But for people that like Call of Duty, like it seems they're adding in the rest of the maps. I think it shipped with 10 maps, and they're adding in the rest of them for free, like this week or something. And so all the base game maps will be in the multiplayer, and I bet they do some DLC maps even. It seems excellent, the multiplayer. Like for those people that want it, it seems like they really respected, as a whole with this remaster, they respected Call of Duty 4 in a way I didn't know. I wasn't sure if they were going to.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Aside from it being bundled permanently right now with Infinite Warfare, I'm sure it'll go on sale on its own soon. But
that really shows their confidence for Infinite Warfare.
Oh god, yeah. But yeah, the COD 4 remaster is wonderful in every way. It looks, it's what a remaster should be. Like the Halo remasters, all the game remasters should be of this quality when it's for a game that is this important. And they treated it with the respect it deserves because it is like the most important game.
Oh yeah.
Probably since Doom, honestly, in terms of modern
genre.
In terms of like game design, honestly, like it's ridiculous how important 4 is. So
I think I will most likely follow the same path that you did. I will go through the campaign and I will definitely dabble in the multiplayer, mostly just for nostalgia. I don't think I'm going to get invested in the multiplayer because I think I've just grown out of Twitch shooters a little bit. I don't think I really like them anymore.
Getting old and slow.
Getting old and slow. Okay, so we were planning to do this in one single recording, but this is going on for a mammoth amount of time. So I think we are going to split this into 2 videos. So this is going to be the end of part 1, and then we are going to come back in part 2 and finish off this list. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you're excited for us to finish off this talk. Goodbye!